This first session, in my mind, is a kind of lay of the land session, and there's no better person to come on stage and give us a sense of what's up with the mood of the people, what people are thinking, what people are doing in social attitudes and politics than Michael Adams. He's been with us before. He's the co-founder and president and CEO of Environics, which is one of those polling firms in Canada which is most often cited for original and interesting research. He's obviously done well in this game because he's a partner in a winery, which is God's way of telling you you probably have too much money.
Last time I was here, Moses, I'm to click on the left. I'm going to be the only Canadian clicking on the left. All right, let's get me up here on that. Last time I was here, I'm always writing books now in the last 10 years. I've appointed myself Professor Emeritus at Environics University. Other people have clients. My friends say, you know, Michael, you know, you always thought of clients as a necessary evil. Now they're just evil. So to liberate yourself, you write the books and you talk about your books. And yeah, when Moses had me here, I was in the throes of thinking about this book. I was going to write about the United States and about Canada. And, you know, this was after 9/11, and I remember we were going to try to flog the thing down in New York. They said, look, we're not interested in an ironic Canadian sitting up in the CN Tower judging us. We're looking for support, not illumination. So sell your book, you know, north of the 49. So I took a leaf out of Rick Mercer's book and thought, okay, I'll interview the Americans and tell the Canadians about it. We do share, you know, many things in common with the Americans. They like to laugh at themselves, and we like to laugh at them too. So this is, think of the context now. 1990, we did our surveys in 92, 96, the year 2000, before 9/11. The context is globalization. We had an election in 1988, a really fascinating election, just like this one. And the question was free trade, and of course the opposition liberals said if we have free trade with these people, it'll be the end of Canada. You know, the border would be wiped out. Remember that famous ad? We'd lose our sovereignty, we'd lose our, it would jeopardize our Medicare, and so on. It'd be the end of Canada. And this, in a sense, then, is kind of a report card, this Canada-US study. So what I have today, Moses, of course, is allotted me, and I hope my time isn't up yet. I tend to spend a long time on introductions. On maybe the elevator version of this fire and ice and some new things that I've found. So here's an interesting statement that in a Pew Research poll, these are people out of Washington, do very, very fine research. You should maybe follow them in tracking the American election, which is coming up. But here's a statement that pollsters love to give to people. It's necessary to believe in God in order to be a moral person. So I'm going to talk about some areas where we're the same as Americans, some places where we're different. 58% of Americans agree that you have to believe in God in order to be moral. In Canada, it's 30%, so it's half that proportion. Those who disagree in the US are 40%, and in Canada, 68%. In fact, in Canada, a lot of people believe the opposite. That if you believe in God, you're suspect. So here we've got everybody believing in family. Well, we're not satisfied, at least at Environics, with this kind of a question. We want to dig a little deeper. And one of the things you want to know about a family is the structure of authority in the family. And of course, the hierarchical family is, you know, dad's on top, mom is best actress in a supporting role, and the kids don't speak till spoken to, et cetera, spare the rod, spoil the child, and so on. So let's have a little look at, of course, a very famous Environics question, which is a statement, politically incorrect, of course, that the father of the family must be the master in his own house. So in 92, 26% of Canadians strongly or somewhat agree the father in the family must be the master in his own house. We went into the US, we found 42%. So a chap, I think I was in Dallas or somewhere, he said, did you only survey in Texas? And I said, no, right, you know, San Francisco, Boston, all of these crazy places are in. He said, well, you know, that 1 in 20, you know, it's going to be an erroneous survey. I guess this is it. Go back in the field. So we go back in the field, 20% in Canada, it's going down. U.S. 44%. The gap is wider. What's going on here? It's actually going up in the United States. So we have two observations, and I'm starting to develop a hypothesis that something's going on in this culture, right? We've got one going in one direction, one in the other. So then in the year 2000, now 2000, of course, is that famous election between Gore and Bush. And we'd had 8 years of Homer Simpson, of Bill Clinton's frontal assault on patriarchal authority, you could put it that way. And we kind of, wondered, what do people think about the boys being in charge in the year 2000? Well, Canada's down at 18%. And then, of course, another couple of 100,000 come in, the 14-year-olds. We survey people 15 and over, so the 14-year-olds come into our sample, many people believe from hell, and bring their values. And, so that's what you've got going on in Canada. Well, then we go in the U.S., and it's 49% father must be master. This is incredible. Of course, these people voted for George Bush. And the other 51% voted for Al Gore. And he lost, right? Naturally. Right? So let's have a look at some more. We love demographics. Women in Canada, 13% believe father should be master. In the United States, 43%. All right? Women with post-secondary education in Canada, 10%. In the United States, 39%. Okay, these are random samples, boys and girls. And singles, 17% in the U.S. and 51% in the United States. So this, of course, these attitudes, values, move into other areas as well. We have 51% of Americans who agree that homosexuality should be accepted in today's society. It's 69% in Canada. In fact, since the same-sex marriage debate, the numbers in Canada have stayed about the same. The numbers in the United States have actually declined on acceptance of homosexuality. And then, of course, disagree 42% in the U.S. versus 26% in Canada. Well, again, in this elevator version, you got to be creative on some of these correlations, right? So we got dad, we've got church, and we've got gun ownership. Now, you remember a guy named, the leader of the opposition in the United States is Michael Moore, okay? So... And he sells better here than he does there, but he takes money from anywhere, and now the Europeans love him too. Anyway, he came up here from Detroit, came over the bridge, and he visited, in Windsor, and he came up to Toronto, and he found that nobody locks their doors. I don't know what neighborhood he was in. I know everybody here locks their doors. He says, well, the difference is the social welfare state, and that's partly the case, but he also said, well, there's just as many guns up here. He's a member of the NRA, right? So he says, just as many guns in Canada as there are in the United States. So I've got some numbers here for Michael Moore. Anyway, here we've got father must be the master in his own house, 18%, and in the U.S., the number, 49. So now we have church attendance. Well, we used to be more. We used to be about 70% in Canada. Now it's 22%. And in the U.S., it's about 42%. And it stayed the same since the days of George Gallup first measured this way back in the mid-1930s. So now we have gun ownership. So scientific surveys show that 22% of Canadian households have a gun. And in the U.S., in spite of what Michael Moore says, it's 49%. So on Sunday morning, Dad gets up, reaches for his .357 Magnum and says, okay, kids, we're going to church. If he's the governor of California, of course, it's going to be in a Hummer. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that is Fire Ice, Canada, U.S. I'm, Moses, you want to come out here and... do I have some more time, or you just want to boot me off the stage? Do you have a question for me?
We've got a few minutes left.
Yeah, well, I can't believe it.
If it's perfect and done.
Yeah, it's perfect and done. I don't know. Moses.